Let me find. I want to look smart.
Oh, good grief. I don't know about that. You can try.
Do I look smart?
You look,
Like I'm
oh,
reading a book?
you look so smart. I don't even, it's upside down. Just kidding. Low carb, high protein. You checked. That's hilarious. Oh my gosh. We have a surprise guest today. Who is it? What was that show where the guy was behind the fence, the neighbor? Home
Full
Improvement?
time.
Yeah, tool time. There you go. Tool time, Tom, in the house.
So you're
Tea.
calling. So you're calling me a tool.
Yeah, pretty much, but in a polite way. Some tools are useless. Oh my, what is that? I've never seen that book.
The obesity code.
Huh, interesting.
It's an interesting. Yeah, it's. I think it's a Vancouver doctor. Really interesting.
Wow. You know who else is really interesting? Anybody who joins us today, right?
Yes.
Yeah,
Yes.
exactly. So, welcome everybody. Even if you're not here yet, I'm going to talk to you anyways. So, my name's Michelle, joining you from beautiful Sarnia, Ontario, where it is warm and humid. So, Michelle is staying out inside quite a bit and staying in my zone that is low humidity and has an air conditioner. And I'm with my lovely brother, Tom, who is joining us from Chilliwack, BC. And his weather is.
Well, today is nice and sunny out. You can see behind me. So it's like 5 o'clock here. So pretty good.
Yep.
We had what are we today? Wednesday. On the weekend, we were up to 30 degrees.
Oh, that's hot.
And then it rained yesterday.
Yep.
And you've been here, right? So it's kind of when you got the coast, like being on the West Coast. Um, we used to live in the interior, so it'd be dry, humid, like almost deserty type. And
Uh-huh.
here it's not that. It's kind of, it's got some humidity, right? Which I like actually.
Hmm. Right.
I
Well,
actually run. I got a machine. I got a machine over in that part of my house, and it's just like an air purifier, but not like whatever. It's like nothing overly fancy. And I put some moisture in the air, and then when Teresa comes over, she goes, "It's too moist, too much humidity." Turn it off, right?
and then, yeah, right, exactly. So we're similar because you're near the ocean, we're on the Great Lakes and a river. So same thing. But because of my lungs, humidity, not good. But Alec bought me for the oldest child for, I know you know, but other people, for Mother's Day, he bought me a stand-up air conditioner dehumidifier. So it's right there. Keeps me super
Sweet.
cool. Yeah, exactly. Because if I don't have to put oxygen on, I'm a happy girl. So
Right.
it's a good thing, right? And a
And
little attitude of
and
appreciation.
you when you use the machine, do you like it have it cooler? Like what kind of how do you have it set up that's perfect for you?
Well, I've found since I've had it, just putting it on the dehumidifier puts nice cool air out. It keeps me 67 to 70, I guess, is a good number. I don't like to be freezing either. Like even when we had central air before, it died a few years ago. Even when we had that, I never kept my house cold because it's too hard on you when you leave, right? Just
Yeah.
like you go in the grocery store and it's freezing in the fruit in the meat section or the freezer section, and you just can't get out of there fast enough.
Well, I laugh because once in a while we go to Costco. You
Yep.
guys have Costco's there, right? And
In
they
London.
have this room. You go into this room bigger than that. But you go through Costco. It's kind of fun. You go past meat section. And you go into this special veggie room,
Oh,
and it's cold. And Teresa hates it.
I would.
And so for me, like right now, I have facing me over by the TV in the bottom. I have a fan. I have the fan on all day,
Yep.
and it's quiet fan, so I don't hear it. But I need air movement on me. Like when I sleep at night, I actually have a small fan on my night table that
Oh,
it has a little bit of white noise, but again, I need air movement.
me too. Whenever we move into a house, we've been here a long time now, but the first thing I do, ceiling fans,
Yeah,
because I can't do the stagnant air. I need
yeah,
direct all
yeah.
year round.
So,
Yeah.
so I'm trying to see. I'm waiting. My laptop, I restarted it, but so I'm just waiting to get a response, and then I'll see who's on. Can you see who's on?
I don't think anybody's joined us yet, if my data is accurate. It's not always though. Sometimes,
Yeah, I refresh it.
okay. So, but that's okay. With the nice weather, people are busy, right?
Well, last time, and the people are joining us. So let me get out of here. Let me go to Facebook. Yeah. So last time it was interesting because we started getting the bulk of people joining us after 5:30.
Oh, interesting, which is 8:30 our time. So that's interesting, right?
So to me, and you would know your people more, it's interesting if is like at 8, like so 5 o'clock my time, people will be getting home, dinner, blah, blah, blah. We have a few people that come on in the West Coast, but I think a lot of them will either watch it later or whatever they do. So if they watch it on Facebook Live, so I'm clicking on now. So if they watch it on the Facebook Live, well, we probably could track that and see that,
Yeah.
but you see how many people are. Yeah, so we've got Ron, Maureen, Callie, and Wendy on. So we got a few people joined us. So welcome everybody.
Very good. Shout out to Callie. I did a tie-dye draw yesterday for tapestry. Callie won, which was fabulous. Yay, Callie. Your beautiful little niece pulled her name. So she's in with Gemma. Very good. I love that. So thank you everybody for joining us. Super happy that you're here with us today. And I find it's a great way to end my Wednesday. Then Thursday, I have like a short day, and I have Friday and Saturday off. So all is good, right? That's right. But let's get serious. Let's talk movies, comedy or horror.
Comedy.
Comedy. Me too. Did you used to watch horror?
Okay, so no.
Oh,
Things like Saw,
yeah.
things like that, it doesn't do anything for me, but I went through a phase. I'm still, if there was something new, I love The Walking Dead. Like it was
Oh, okay.
in, and so like the zombies don't freak me out or whatever. But so I've watched some zombie stuff, but I don't. What I think I like, there's something about the way as humanity we go through a crisis thing, right?
Yeah.
So I find that like even like I'll watch stuff like I don't know, I saw this before, but I saw it again pop up on Netflix. The Rock's in that skyscraper. And I like The Rock. He's like
Too.
whatever. It's not going to be a deep movie,
Right.
but he's like loses a leg or an arm. I can't remember, but it's
No,
this catastrophe movie, and you see who's just going to take care of themselves or who's going to help people type thing, right?
right.
So anyway,
Yeah.
like if there was a zombie apocalypse, like here, let me say here. Do you have another question? Because I have a question for you after.
Maybe.
You tell me your question first.
Okay, so I just want to let you know I used to love horror movies and now not so much. But movies like Saw, again, I love the whole behavior, the mind twist, but I can't watch the gore. I literally do this without glasses until it's over. And sometimes if Al's watching it, he'll mess with me and he'll be like, it's over. Then I'm like, ah, and I put it back down. But, anyways, my trauma. But
Uh,
now yeah, I'm not really a fan. Okay, so dining in or dining out?
Dining in 100%.
Really, very interesting.
Well, because my background is a chef,
Yeah.
I can, and actually, no, if I'm with somebody and like if there's like kind of a special thing, we have an Indian restaurant here that I'm not going to make Indian food, but they're good friends of mine. They make the best Indian food. But yeah, I I'm a simplistic guy, and I think I said this last time. I've actually instilled, I work with people off and on different times on people that feel overwhelmed with cooking, their days are long,
Yeah.
it's easy for them to buy a TV dinner, something like that. And I just had in a depression group I'm in, it's like through email, it's not like an online thing. Well, I guess it's online, it's on email. And somebody from Houston, a lady from Houston, was asking about food, about like what people find that in the area of food helps them. I said, you know what, as best that you can with no judgment, but if you can eat clean, meaning less processed foods,
That's right.
you can't do it perfectly, and you shouldn't beat yourself up with cheats, or like if you have, go buy a box of KD or whatever, it doesn't matter, right?
Right.
But I think, and I don't have any proof, I think we feel better. And cooking,
No, there is proof. It's true. You're right.
yeah. And I think there is some data, but it's actually better for your body. So anything to do is better for our body is better for our mind, right? But here's the thing too. I'll tell you the question in a minute. So Wendy's on, our sister, and so I remember, and I don't know if I forgot it last time, but when I did my trip there, I went to Wendy's. I can't remember. Yeah, I think it was that trip, and we binge watched this Squid Games, which was awesome. So that was great. Um, and we would just like to cook. So I can't remember the whole thing, but there's something social in a family gathering to cook together.
That's right. And it's our love language, right?
Yep.
You've got history, you're
And
sharing,
with
learning, love it.
and what I'm going to do on here, I'll have to find it. So when our son Ethan, who's like 6'5" now, graduating this year, but when he was younger, we've got the cutest little picture. We got him standing on a chair, and I'll share it in the group because it's just too super cute. He's making cookies with Teresa, but he's got his apron on and he's got like chocolate on his face. So he's
Love
not even, he's eating the cookie dough. Anyways, so there's something about, like you mentioned about Gemma, who does little things like that. When if we can, to whatever degree that we can, we're going to talk about goal setting again. But there's something with our grandkids or even our kids, if they're younger, that if we can include them, we're in an age where it's so easily everything's electronics, tablets, whatever. But if we can put down and say, hey, well, I have a family that makes ugly pizza, so they buy a pre-made pizza bottom, and everybody is allowed to make their own little mini pizza. They can put whatever they want on it.
Yeah.
And one of the kids puts like chocolate, marshmallows.
Not really what I was thinking, but okay, yeah.
Well, there used to be teen groups years ago. We used to eat ugly pizza, and they would be able to put things on pizza that other people had to eat. So it was like Smarties and anchovies. It was just disgusting, right?
Right.
Do you make pizza at home?
Yeah, we do sometimes. There's a pizza place that's been around for as long as I can, well, almost as long as I can remember, maybe not my whole life, but it's called Dressy's, and they do pizza kits for fundraisers.
Oh,
So
nice.
yeah, and they're medium pizzas. So and they're $20 a box. They come with the dough. You can freeze them. I've done that. The dough, the sauce, the pepperoni, the cheese. So I buy extra toppings. I get 2 boxes, but then I split them up, and everybody, because Xavier just likes pepperoni, you know how it goes. I like a lot of things. So we just get the cookie sheets out, and I do individual pizzas, and they absolutely love it. And it's going to a good cause because it's for a fundraiser.
Have you heard of dessert pizzas?
No.
Okay, so back when I was little, long time ago, when dinosaurs were around, back when I was little, lived in Scarborough, and we lived at Mornell Court. So I think it was Military Trail was the school I went to when I pre-high school, like elementary school, right?
Yeah.
And there was a little strip mall across the street from that. I don't remember the pizza place, but they did. So I remember this like 7, 8, 9, 10, whatever the age I was, right? They did a dessert pizza, first one to ever do it. And I don't know if Boston Pizza or somebody does it. So they've got pizza dough, and they do apple pie filling,
Oh,
cinnamon, and mozzarella. So good. So that's a freebie for people on here.
there you go. Stay tuned.
Apple pie filling. Get a small one, put a can of apple and try it. So good. Not
Wow.
even weird. It's almost like an apple pie, I guess, in a way.
Well, that's what I was leaning towards. So you said that last part.
Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. Ah, interesting. When the kids were little, I used to buy is it Chef Boyardee kits where you can buy the dough kit. But then
Yeah, yeah,
also sometimes we get English muffins and
yeah,
make little pizzas on those.
yeah. So if anybody who's listening now or listens later, on the group chat or on our face group page next time, put down any fun stories about pizza, what your preference for pizza is. Uh, my son would only eat pepperoni and nothing else forever. Now he's a little bit better. If we go to Subway, which is his favorite like fast food place to go, he has had the same sub, a tuna sub, the same toppings, everything the same for he's 18, so 11 years, 10, 11, 12 years.
Yeah, because you took me there. One of my visits, you and me and Ethan. I'm gonna
Never
say it, Nicole, when we went to White Wing,
right.
right? And he had that was his gig. So
Never changed, never
yeah,
changed. And the good thing is if you know what you like, great.
yeah.
But so my question is before we get going here, and we've got a bunch more people jumped on. Thank you, everybody. Jacqueline, Sandra, can't see who else. Anyways, so Michelle had a couple questions for me, talking about horror movies, comedy, whatever, right? So out in the West Coast, for us that are out here, we are technically overdue for an earthquake because we're on a fault line.
That's right.
It won't affect me. I won't get swallowed up by the ocean, but
Okay.
with a big earthquake, tsunamis, whatever, where I live, we'd have enough notice, but I live in a floodplain area, right? Where you've been in, right?
Right.
So this is because of the zombie apocalypse we're talking about, right? So if a catastrophe happened, so it could be earthquake, it could be anything happen. Do you have enough
Tell you right now,
stuff
no.
if all of a sudden you had no power or nothing, would you have enough to survive for a few days, or would you have to go rob your neighbor?
Yeah, I wouldn't last very long. I don't think. Because they say, what do they say? And then my freezer, right? So I'd end up barbecuing the food I did have in the freezer. Um, yeah, maybe 3, 4 days thinking about it. Like with
And
the
that's not bad. Like part of what he is, you want to have water and you want to have canned. You want to have like vegetables too, but anything like you said, our fridge and freezer down. But yeah, so the whole joke is with a zombie apocalypse. Would you be the type that would trip your friend because they're faster, so they get eaten and you could run away, or would you just
Oh, I'd be the friend going down. Don't even worry. Oh my gosh. I would take it. I'd be like, run, run. You're
and
fine.
would you and if you had no food and you were starving, would you just deal with that, or would you like try to borrow or convince your neighbor or rob your neighbor?
So here's a fun fact. We have a wood fireplace and we have friends that have more food than us. So I would hope that and we also have friends, that I'm not going to name names, that are very good at hunting and fishing, actually, including my son-in-law, Nicole's guy. So it's funny because in different conversations during COVID, me and a couple of my really good friends, more in the cold, not in this weather, have joked about, well, Michelle's got a fireplace. They could come here for warmth, but they'd have to bring food. And then that would be our bartering. And then our friends with guns and fishing rods, they could come and barter. So we've already got our little commune started.
Yeah. See, what I would do is I know somebody in your part of the lands that has a nice big boat, sister.
Yeah.
And I'd have to get across the country, which is
I'm
probably a
gonna say,
problem.
I'll beat you there.
Yeah, but yeah, it's again liking psychology and stuff like that. It's just an interesting thing about how we would respond in calamity or the different things. Are we a sharer, or do we get so paranoid that we're just going to? I don't have enough for me. I might not have enough. I can't share, and there's no right or wrong. Like some people may have different ideas,
Right.
like opinions and thoughts,
Sure.
but really, and by the way, the reason I was thinking about that is I had a conversation, and this is another topic for maybe you privately, whatever, but because we have good talks after this, is I was talking to a friend of mine and we were talking about colonization. So that's kind of a little bit of a trigger word, whatever. But I love human history.
Yeah.
And I find it intriguing through all of mankind. The first caveman, and one had a stick and one had a rock, and the rock won or something. I don't know, whatever, right? There's something about our human nature in general of conquerors. It's the way we are. I'm not saying across the board, all of us, right?
Right. But no, hunters,
But
gatherers. Yeah. Yeah.
yeah, and it's just interesting because we're not all like that. There's a conquering group can deal with communities that weren't conquering. And back like thousands of years ago, it really was that's the way you took over the world: Roman Empire, Egyptian, blah blah blah, right? So it's an interesting mindset because I don't think we're like that now. That's why the whole colonization that happened with the English hundreds of years ago. But right now, outside maybe the Middle East, we just see a lot of nations or groups that are more helpful in
Right.
my mind.
Yep. No, I completely agree. I think we actually saw a little bit of that during COVID, didn't we? With the toilet paper, with just not going into detail, but we saw a bit of that, and it's interesting. In the last week, when we could all see the Northern Lights, it seemed to be another, because I'm a YouTube watcher, it's another conversation that seemed to come up. What if the grid goes down because this is a solar flare, right? I actually was on the phone with a gentleman today. I don't know, he was somewhere deep into the States, and they all pick up on my accent that I don't hear. And he was saying, I don't know, and I said something about that for the first time in Sarnia, to my knowledge, we were able to see the Northern Lights. And he goes, well, you'll see them again. Everything's on a cycle. In 2 weeks, that comes back. And I thought, well, that's true or not. I don't know. It was a guy on the phone, but it makes you think, right? Because when it comes to things like that, and that's not tied in with humans or, global warming or what, like this is a solar flare. That's a completely different thing
Right.
that just makes you think, right? About exactly what you said. Like, what would I do? What would I have? Would I, help my friends, help people that aren't I would, because it's my way, but I would also proceed with caution. And then I'd have Al, who's the opposite of me. So he'd be checking everybody at the door, where I'm like, come on in, right? So we're the yin and the yang for sure. So yeah, it's interesting that does come up from time to time. I can honestly say I have some friends. I don't know if they're preppers per se, like we see documentaries on, but they are to a point. They're really frugal. They do a lot of sale shopping. So I have at least one friend. She's got a couple freezers full all the time and a storage room full of
Yeah.
cans and but those people are far and few between. And with the economy today, I think more people are leaning that way where they're watching for the sales and they're stocking up. Like, do you do that?
Well, yeah. When Teresa and I lived together, I like a full fridge. That's just me, right?
Okay, yeah.
Um, and living on my own, except for Ethan on the weekends, I'm not like that anymore. But what I do, like we have this place, a veggie place in town. I don't know if Mom ever took you to this Windmill, and they got bags of fresh cukes and tomatoes and peppers they sell for like $4 or $5. So I bought a bag that'll last me for a couple of days. Um, we've got a nice butcher here. So for me, outside of like dairy or a couple little things like that, my fridge isn't like that. But my cupboard, I probably have like I'd have enough food for a while. I don't eat a whole lot,
Right,
a big guy, right?
right.
But here's the funny thing. Go back to your friend. So not contradicting him or not. So my son, we were talking about the Northern Lights, right?
Yeah.
And so he wants to be a scientist,
Yep.
and when we go out, he's got his stargazing thing, and he's
Nice.
he doesn't want to go to outer space, but he would be okay to go to outer space. That's too far up for me.
Me
I
too.
don't like the distance coming down, and I'm claustrophobic, so that would ruin it. But he's explaining to me kind of what's happening with solar flares and this and that, and like the kid is smart, right? But so sometimes with these solar flares in our history, I don't think anything's happening that I've heard of to the majestic component that we had in our northern hemisphere, but
Right.
not a studier of it, right?
Right.
But solar flares, and this was one of the biggest solar flares that had happened in how many years?
Yeah.
We had something like this happen, oh, I don't know, can't remember, quite a few years ago, and it affected some of our towers and just
Exactly right. That's
yeah.
right. Yep.
See, the thing is talking. So it's interesting because we're in a way talking about preppers and all that. In a way, we're talking about goal setting or planning. Here's kind of the push in that, and I would have people think about is there's some people that live for today, like what's the sense? We don't know tomorrow's coming, blah blah blah, which is fair.
I get
But
it.
the one thing I've learned in my age is that if if I don't if I'm not willing to be a lifelong learner, and I would I have probably an argument with somebody as you age, as you go from 10 to 20 to 30, 40, 50, 60, right? You're adapting on one level or not. The world is adapting and you are, and it could be on countless measures, right?
Yep.
But it's interesting to be able to look at yourself and go, okay, and without judgment, okay, this is who I am, this is what I do, and then go, okay, what do I want to do now out here? Like it's smart for us to have kind of emergency kit. They'll say, oh, by the way, water, I have a jug on the counter with a filter. That's what I do, right?
Yep.
In your car, do you have a spare tire?
Are you asking me?
Yeah.
I do. And it's funny about the emergency kit. I bought one for each of the kids for Christmas this year.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's
Because they wouldn't
something.
got it for themselves. Aha.
See, it's something. It's like insurance. I'm one of these guys. I kind of hate, like if you go to Best Buy and you buy like a $100 toaster, I don't know, $100, whatever, $200, $100 printer. Do you want the 2-year warranty for that with $20? I'm going, it's $100. No. But we recognize we want insurance just in case, but we hate the idea of paying for insurance because we hate it, right? You heard about my little accident, right? My car. Have I shared this live?
No.
So what I did is I was getting Mom something, I think from Marketplace or something, I can't remember, something like that, in January. And I was going into a senior complex where it's like one way, you drive through one way and out.
Yeah.
And so I pulled into the wrong address. And so I was pulling out of the thing, and it was like this not gated, but it's senior 55 over, right?
Sure.
So as I put the car into reverse, as soon as I put it into reverse, I sneezed. And instead of hitting the brake, I hit the gas. I went backwards and I hit a lamppost, one of these old black English style, and I moved it enough and I hurt my bumper. So talking about insurance, right? So my insurance covered. I paid a $500 deductible,
Yeah.
but I got my car back about a month ago. $10,000 damage.
Wow.
So paying insurance is a value, right? We hear people that don't have.
Yeah.
Do you have home insurance, like contents insurance?
Yep.
Yeah, and it's not that you have to have much. Like I have a little bit. I don't have a ton of stuff here,
We don't
but
have much new.
yeah. But you know what it
But
is though. But planning,
Mhm.
and somebody may be a good saver. Oh, I'm good with my money, or good with setting goals for their physical health or mental health, right? But if we, like, this whole thing is called mental wellness for life, and 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 in this thing, and that can look like saving up for a trip. That can look like, like I look at things that are not my normal strengths. What can I work on, right?
yeah, good.
And 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 I'm not scared to challenge myself anymore because I don't beat myself up. But
Good. Yeah, awesome. You know what's funny about that with the new products? I never buy insurance because I expect they made it right and it would last, which is not reality right now, but I'm just saying. So I don't, but yeah, definitely auto insurance content, that sort of thing. Very important. And you're right, it ties back in with planning, right? And the planning ties back in. With your setting goals, right? Planning out. And we talked
yeah,
last week about small increments.
yeah,
So, and that's one of the things that we do with my coaching is you're celebrating. Like we celebrate 5 pounds. I'll celebrate staying the same. I'll celebrate losing, or going the wrong direction, but you would have gone the wrong direction worse. But you have to look at those small increments and celebrate along the way. They're so very important. So even when we were talking about accumulating, say you say, well, I want my goal to be, I want enough canned goods in the house I can survive 2 weeks. It's going to start with one can. You're not going to do it. You're not going to, don't go to the grocery store and dump a gazillion dollars right now to stock up and break the bank. And then that ends up being your grocery food, anyways, because now you can't afford groceries, right? So, small steps, I think, no matter what it is you want to achieve, because some people have food, like fear of like being in lack, food insecurities. I've been
there you
watching
go.
Hoarders lately. I feel fabulous about my house right now. I've been watching Hoarders, and but it's so true. A lot of times when people hoard food, it's people usually significantly older. Maybe they were very poor growing up and didn't have a lot of food. Maybe they were in wartime. That's another thing, right? Even if they're accumulating a lot of stuff, fear of not having the money to buy the other things. So these are all really, important things to look at, work on yourself, and then move forward one little step at a time towards whatever that bigger goal is.
100%. So a bunch more people jumped on. Thanks to my friend Krista for laughing at me sneezing and driving.
Atta
Um,
girl.
learned lesson, but yeah, and here's so in it, I like what you said about this mindset, because here's the funny thing about about in the world we live in now, the amount of anxiety and stress and different things, and you deal with this. You've been dealing with this a long time with Weight Watchers, right? Is you'll get people that are like something and will trigger in their mind, or maybe a health thing or something goes on, and they go, I need to change. I
Yep.
need to change. Like something's triggering that. Good, usually good. Like, well, unless it's a health scare, right? But still, at that point, all of a sudden, your mind will shift and go, okay, I'm going to do it. And then this, where people will be good for so long, ABC, 1 week, 2 weeks, 1 month, 2 months, and it's really the norm is we very few of us maintain that long term. We may adjust that, but
Yep.
from in my world, like again, working with mental wellness, to think that you're not going to get depression or anxiety or stress or fear or phobias come in. There's just so much of that in the world. So we live within the world, but so how do you manage through that, and how do you become stronger, healthier, like building a muscle or something like that, right?
Right.
And part of it is, you said something was interesting, the food insecurities. I did a course years ago, nothing to do with what we're talking about, and it was about a poverty mentality.
Yeah.
And it
Oh,
wasn't just to do with money. It
right.
was to do this mindset, and it would cause people to either hoard or just give up.
Yep.
And Michelle and I've said here many times that the beginning of it is you have to believe you're worth it. One of the things I wish I would have done, I can't change it. You know what? I told my son this, who's not working, he's going to university next year, right? I said, if you get a part-time job, I tell my daughter who's in her 30s, I said, you know what? If you put away $10 a check, you'll never notice it.
That's right.
And if you do this now with compounding interest, I'm not this big financial guy, so I'm trying to, but all I know is in the cost of what it would cost now to live to 10 years, 20 years, 50 years ago, right? I wish I would have put, when I started working, $5 or $10 away.
Yeah. Yeah.
Because I wouldn't have noticed it much now, but I would notice having that amount now, right?
That's right. Exactly. Yep, for sure.
Yeah.
And it's
And
the
that
small increments.
and that exactly, if we look at our well-being, to do that, that applies in physical health, mental wealth. One of the things I put, and I don't know, we touched about it last week, is the beginning of goal setting. This whole thing we talked about, SMART goals.
Yep.
It comes down to a mindset. It comes down to go, okay, if you're content with where you're at, that's okay. I would challenge that most of us aren't.
Yeah, I agree.
And that, like, even if you've got all the money in the world, there's something that you want to do that, like, there's something we want to be embedded for ourselves or those around us or our grandkids or kids, whatever, right? And it begins with the mindset of being willing to set a goal, and then take, like, goal setting. If you don't write it down, that it's harder to attain, but set a goal, set something that's attainable, and then adjust as you go, right? And one of the things that I believe, and for the people on here, you can throw in your comments, I actually believe the beginning of success with stuff like this, Michelle, is almost like the whole idea of centering, resetting. I think if people start off the day, like, we wake up, we need a coffee, we got water in our face, brush your teeth, whatever we do, routine, right?
Yep.
There's something before you start your day with work or do whatever, sit quiet.
Yep.
And you don't have to overthink this, but just kind of think about your breathing. Think about just kind of yourself. Don't think about what you're going to do. Just think of yourself. And I don't know if I can find it, Michelle. You saw the little thing I shared today on our group?
I don't think so. I worked a lot today.
Well, whatever. Yeah, I kind of don't work. Anyway, let me look at it later. But what it was,
I will, for sure.
it says this before you do. It says, when things are chaotic, but you choose happiness and gratitude because you know the universe is working for you in ways you can't even imagine.
I love it. I love it. And what you're saying is like, so in the morning, so like whatever it is that you like to do. So like when I have to do this regimen for my lungs in the morning. So I do that 20 minutes maybe, and I put the TV on, but I put it on fish tank mode. So it's like just real chill. Sometimes I might put a little bit of like music. So I'm not meditating because I'm blowing in this thing, but I'm
Yeah.
just sort of chill. But I'm setting positive intentions, and I'm also setting my expectation for the day. If you don't set an expectation for the day or positive intentions, you're just going to fly by the seat of your pants all day. Might work out, might not. But if you you determine, okay, this is what's going on, even if you know it's going to be a shitty day. So let's say, or can I say that? I said it. Oh well. Anyways, so let's say my I have to call the hydro department today. I don't, but let's say I did, and it's going to be a stressful phone call and whatever, or a meeting with somebody that you're not looking forward to. It is what it is. You're still going to go to the meeting. You're still going to make the phone call, but expect the best result. Expect that there's no additional drama or whatever, and just sort of, be honest and real and true. And this is, and then have some positive mantras. I mean, I like to start my day thinking of like, what can I do to make life better for somebody else? And every time I take a phone call with my hotel job, that's what I'm doing. I'm finding them the best rate. I'm finding them a good room. I'm doing a free upgrade, whatever, right? Of course, there's some not so great calls. Same as with WW. I had a meeting tonight, and I'm doing lots of positive things, but there's some tough conversations as well. So sort of grounding myself in the moment that today, I work 6 hours, then I go to the meeting, and then I go do this. What do I expect? What should it play out like? And if I look at my day and I'm like, yeah, that's not going to work, I can't fit that in, that, whatever, then change your list, rearrange it, right? Do what you can. If your list is get up, stay up, good. That's your list, right? Whatever it is. So that's great. And if I can just circle back to a couple other things you said. Number one, it's always easier to quit than to keep on trying. We as human beings, we always go for the easy option. So it's much easier to go back to old ways, to not put any effort in. A couple of the things that I like to share is number one, it's only you versus you, nobody else. So if today you can do a smidgen better than yesterday or the same, you're still winning. The other thing that I think is really important that you touched on is to motivate you to keep going, you need to have a why as an anchor. And your why can change, but your why has to be a little specific. So with my why, like I could say, well, I want to be healthy because it's just good health. Like, but what does good health look like to me? Does that mean I can run a 5K? No, that doesn't interest me one stinking little bit. So that's not what it is. But does being healthy mean I can interact with my grandchildren and not be out of breath or on oxygen? That's a good thing, right? If that means maybe I want a healthy lifestyle for longevity, I want to go to all my grandchildren's weddings, graduations. Is that your why? Because in those moments when it's crappy weather out, but you made a goal every day you're going to walk, and then it comes to this day and it's really crappy weather out, and you're like, oh man, I did it all these days. I don't feel like doing it, blah, blah, blah. A few different things. Number one, is my decision I'm making right now aligning with where I want to be in the future? Is me staying on the couch, probably having some chips, aligning with where I want to be? No, it's not. Right. And often in those moments, like nobody's going to go and regret it, first of all. And then the other thing is when we start taking that easier option, it's much easier for me not to go to my group and exercise. It'd be easier for me to stay home and have a nap, just saying. But it's it turns that's a slip which easily turns into a slide. And this is something that happens quite often with people with food because they do really well. They're watching what they're eating, and then all of a sudden their car on autopilot drives them through McDonald's and they end up with a Big Mac. I don't know how that happens. And then that shift happens of, oh, well, I already blew it. So I might as well eat the chips in the cupboard tonight. And then in the morning, I already blew it. I might as well have pancakes with butter and syrup. And then it's just a big snowball. And I like to explain it like if you're in San Francisco, you're on one of those roads on the big hill, and your car's on the top and it's in neutral, it's starting to roll. It's quicker to catch it at the top of the hill than let it run you down at the bottom. So and forgive yourself. So I went to McDonald's. I was raised going to McDonald's. It smelled good. Whatever. I did it. I own it. I move on. Today's a brand new day. Now, that being said, if every day's a brand new day, you're not going to achieve your goals, right? But finding that in between where you're achieving your goals, but you're going at a realistic pace, it's achievable. And again, celebrate all along the way. I want to tell you about a member that I have who does come to our group, and I don't know if she's here today or not, but I'm sure she'd be okay with me sharing this story because it's so amazing. And I have no idea how much weight she lost. But in real life, with real people, you gain and lose and gain and lose, and hopefully you're losing more than you're gaining. So every time she lost a pound, she put $1 in a jar. And eventually, over, I don't know, if she's here, she might say how long it took, but she got to her goal weight, whatever that was. And then when she was done, she went to like a store here downtown. It's called Stones and Bones. She went there, she bought herself with the money a great big huge beautiful purple amethyst stone that sits in her kitchen now.
Love
So
it.
it all ties together. Small increments. She didn't beat, well, I'm saying she didn't beat herself up, but on the days where she didn't take a loony back either. Let's just be clear on that. But if she didn't lose, then it was okay. It was a lesson. The reality is, if you're looking at, health, it's not realistic to think you're going to have a win every single week. That's just not, like, our bodies have to adjust. There's different things. Plus, you've got May 2 for Mother's Day, Father's Day, Christmas. People, our
Yeah.
love language, right? Like birthdays or cake, funerals or casseroles. It is what it is. We have to do the best we can.
And I think it's interesting. Again, I always tell people, Tom is a note taker. Michele says something and it triggers. So triggering is not always bad. Triggering can be good. But
Yeah.
so I got a few different notes, and this is the way we work, which I love.
Mhm.
And we have a bunch of people on. So thank you everybody for joining us. A bunch more came on. Anyways,
Good.
I'm in sales. So one of the things I do is sales. And so my company would not succeed if we didn't have sale goals, right?
Right. Yeah.
But in it, so this is really, in my experience, the way I work at stuff, and it's not just with sales, it's with my physical being, it's recovering, it's physically, mentally, is you have a goal, but you have to work backwards. So if my goal would be, let's say, so one of my goals is, so I'm not scared to say this. So at my heaviest weight, I was 300 pounds. So this is before pre-cancer and all this stuff. So I had cancer, colon cancer, right? So I'm at 255 right now.
Woohoo.
So I want to get to 220 so I can have this surgery I'm hoping I can get, which
Yeah.
is to fix my core, right? Because I'm so over herniated. It affects me mentally and sometimes emotionally, right?
Yep.
But if my goal, say, was to lose 80 pounds, so that's the far goal, that's the big goal.
Right.
Then and you can have a goal. My trainer who I work with, he used to be 300 pounds and he's 175 now.
Yeah. I love it.
And he used to work up in Fort Mac, northern BC, and he spent so much. He made tons of money in the oil industry, out in the oil rigs and that. And he had drug addiction, and he had a whole bunch of different stuff. He had relational problems, and so it's all shifted. But it took one day at a time.
Yep.
And took when you fall down, you scrape your knee, dust it off, and get up. So the whole thing of working backwards, if you're going to set a goal, I put down for some people what are some of the goals. If you have a goal, say you have a goal to save $100, for an example, and say you work and you go, okay, well, things are tight, whatever. But you know what? If I put like even the change in my car away
Yeah.
and put it into a jar,
Yeah.
like I've had some jars that I've given my grandkids that have like hundreds of dollars in it just from loose change.
Yeah, I've paid some major bills from waitressing. Say,
Yeah.
and I said a greasy spoon, not fine dining.
Yeah.
And yeah, I'd bring them home, and every night I'd put them. And if I had to buy bread and milk out of it, I did that first. But I had Pringles containers. This was before Loonies.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
and I would put them in, and then when times were really tough, and there were some really tough times, I'd pull them out, and it would be usually a utility, and because whatever it is, what it is, and I'd pull them out, and it would be hundreds of dollars, and I'd be
Yeah.
like, wow, I'm so glad, because it would have been easier instead of separating them all and everything like I did. It would be much easier to just like let the kids buy popsicles, or Dickie D was around back then. Do you know Dickie D?
Yeah. And the lesson in that, so the lesson, something like that, is that something that seems trivial, a nickel here, a dime here, whatever, it compounds and actually going back to our mind, right? You said so. Michelle and I were talking earlier, and she was telling me a bit about her rehabbing. Rehabbing is one of my fun words right now, and for some people, it could be negative. But here's the fun thing about rehabbing. In reality, this is that I think it's a mantra. You're either going forward or going backwards. There's no standing still language, whatever, right? Leave that for a second. But we're all in a place of rehabbing. Doesn't have to do with drugs or different things. That can be that, but in a way, like Michelle was talking about how she's rehabbing her lungs, so she could just be a bit more healthier for her grandkids.
Right.
Right.
Exactly.
When I was after my surgery and I was bedridden several months, I was incredibly suicidal depressed. If I could have figured out a way, and I was off work for a while as a long term, my work was awesome, the way they took care of me and stuff. If I could have found a way to accidentally die because of the pain, like my body had been so traumatized and how that affects your mind and all that, and that those things go vice versa, by the way. You can have an issue with your mind and it can affect you physically. They interchange, right? And if I would have, I didn't care, like I just wanted to stop this, whatever I was feeling. And at some point, and I don't know when, something triggered. I think I eventually started taking courses, but all I did was sleep and I stayed in bed. I had nurses coming in every day taking care of my wounds, right? If I could go, I would have been happy to go. Whatever is after here, I would have been happy, right?
Right.
And at some point, I realized that something switched in me, and I wanted to be there for my granddaughters, and then my son, right, who back then was like 10.
Right.
And this is terrible. I wasn't thinking of mom, by the way, and I wasn't thinking of siblings. Definitely wasn't thinking of self. Wasn't thinking of you. Sorry, you were out. You're not in the will. Sorry, sis. But something shifted, and it's interesting. It's interesting in our mindset. So this shift, and I use the word rehabbing. It's all of a sudden rehabbing the way we think, right? If you're suffering with depression, so I'm going to use it as an example, right? If you're suffering with depression, have you suffered with depression? Sorry, I've been drinking water. Okay.
Yep.
The hardest thing with depression, and my daughter had depression, social anxiety. When she was here, and mom and me and my wife would help out with the kids' school and all this stuff, it was all the energy my daughter had was to get out of bed and get the kids at the house, and we would take them to school and pick them up. She couldn't even open the blinds.
Yep. It's
devastating, and it gets like, it's so easy for people to simplify it. It's not, unless you've been through it. It's not. It's hard, right? So the mindset, me and Michelle get to speak from being on this side now. It really takes it takes just a little bit. You don't have to like, oh, so no, I'm just going to get over it. It takes a long time. I
Yeah.
actually, when I had a few weeks ago, I was overwhelmed, some anxiety from work. It was just stupid. It was stupid customers, by the way, sucking my soul. You know, I had to take. It was a Friday, 5 o'clock. I said, you know what? Shut her down. Sat on my couch, closed my eyes for a few minutes, recentered. Right, because I actually have the power to do that. So when you're working through some mental illness, and sometimes we need medication, sometimes we need different therapies, sometimes we need rehab.
Yeah.
But it really starts with a little thing. I bragged on Michelle when she was out here a few times ago, and she put in our place. She snuck around our place when we were sleeping,
I did.
and this is Michelle's incredible gift. She put little notes hidden in like plate number 3 or through all over that my wife found months and months and months later that were great reminders saying you're worth it and you're awesome and you've got this. So transfer that to yourself. So if you're suffering with depression right now, if you're in the group, in our group chat here, and I'm sure there is, yeah, somebody, Missy just put something.
Yeah.
It you feel alone and you feel stuck, and that's why you want to build a rapport with people you trust that are sympathetic
Yeah.
but are helpful. You're not just sitting in a cesspool of negativity, right? And it really takes a little bit. Like we talked weeks and weeks ago about with depression, like fresh air, sunlight. Remember, we talked about different
Sure.
things.
Yeah.
So there's something about that. When I did work with young men, well, not young men, all ages actually, with drug addiction. So I was a counselor in a place where we'd have men come in through working through their drug addiction, right? And some of them have been in jail and lost family, ABC, whatever, right? You know, not pay their mortgage and go binge.
Sure.
So
Yeah.
one of the things that I would do with them, and it's a mindset, but I would help them like shorten the cycle. So if you would go binge, if they would go on a bender for a month and nobody knows where they are, so that's an extreme example, right? So how do we shorten that? And because like Michelle said something earlier that was reminded me, we feel like, oh, you know what? I ate a piece of pizza. I didn't want any carbs this week. Oh, whatever. I'm gonna eat the whole pizza. And by the way, if you eat the whole pizza, who cares? Like in a way, get back on the treadmill tomorrow, right? Get in the game tomorrow, right?
Right.
So I would help these guys, and it was hard because they suffered shame. There was these components that made them feel like a loser. They already struggled with probably uh, abandonment or other issues of feeling, devalued to,
Right.
to their own demise, or maybe things that happen. Could be a combination, right? But it took really saying, you know what? Yeah, you had a crappy weekend. You know what? It's gone. You can't change yesterday, right?
That's
What do you
exactly
want to
it.
do? What do you want to do today? But we've been goal setting. The key you brought up last time, Michelle, it has to be attainable. I don't care, like whatever. Now I'm getting passionate. I'm not getting agitated. So please, I'm passionate. I don't care if it's a little step.
Yeah.
I don't. If all of a sudden you, this is a bad example. I don't know why I'm thinking this. If all you can do is get to the bathroom so you
Yeah.
don't
I
soil
know,
the
I
bed.
agree. That's right. That's
if
okay.
all if that's all you have, it's okay,
That's right. That's right.
right?
Yeah, for sure. And I think, once you accept that that's okay and that's still a step, it encourages you to do more. And if I can circle back to what you were saying about the giving, and it's funny, Missy and I sort of had a conversation about this privately over the last couple days, how good it feels when you're giving to other people, you're helping them out, you're, making their life a little easier, or providing a product that they just love, that they're getting a great product for a reasonable price. I'm sure you go through a lot of that with your sales, right? And so all of that is you're helping other people, but there's a lot of self-serving there as well, as far as you feel good, you feel the connection to other people, Like all of those are such a great part of your own mental health. And maybe that's your goal. I want to help more people, or realizing what the economy is right now. One thing I'd like to do sometime, and I just haven't actually got to do it, um, is like I've always said, we have a big farmers market walking distance from my house. I'd like to go there and buy like a bunch of apples and just give out free apples. That's the sort of stuff I like to do, right? I like to hold up signs, stuff like that. So that's another thing, really good, that just makes you feel good, attaches a sense of belonging. There's so many mental parts of that are so important. And if I can add to this whole thing, when you're talking about creating a new habit or perfect
I'm
smile,
holding up a sign for
love
you.
it. I smiled. It worked. Um, Another thing you can do is what we call habit bundling. So look at something you're already doing, and you can call it a habit or not call it a habit, but then bundle in something else that helps you achieve your goals. For example, if you like to watch a certain TV show, right, you could do activity and tie it in. Or I had this one guy, I used to coach in different areas in southwestern Ontario, and I think he was in Strathroy or St. Thomas. But his first activity that he ever did that was outside of the norm, every commercial, he walked around his main floor until the commercial was over. He was already watching TV. It's already his scheduled television show, but he added this new thing in, right? Same as if you already have a coffee every morning as soon as you get up. So, habit bundling. If you want to add more water into your life, which it's getting hot, we all need more water. So, have a glass of water before every coffee, something like that. Like, and I don't know what the answer is. One time we were talking about activity, and we got talking about activity attire. Where do you keep your activity attire? Is it in, whatever your walking clothes are or whatever? Are they in the bottom of a junk drawer? Are they underneath the baseball bats and the baseball gloves? Or are they hanging on the back of your bedroom door where you're going to see them every morning when you get up and remind you that you need to go for a walk? Or because we're busy, we're humans, we're creatures of habit. And Joe Dispenza says, I don't know if you follow him, he's very good, that like 95% of our day we're doing on autopilot. So no wonder we struggle adding a new thing, because I can sit here with you and say, yeah, I can add in whatever, no problem. And it's funny with, weekly weigh-ins every Wednesday, we go, we meet, I uplift, I inspire, they walk out the door, might not think of anything I said until next Wednesday when we repeat, right? So adding something in takes some effort. You're going to want to make sure, whatever it is, same as if you want to change your food, keep the chips in the cupboard and the bananas on the counter. We're always going to go for the easy option, right? Works, tried and true every time.
It's so part of yeah, I love that.
Yeah.
It's this thing about like the more we get to know ourselves. I'm just posting, I'm trying to find Facebook again. One of my favorite well, let me find it first and I'll put it in the group chat. So one of my favorite quotes from a long time ago, if I can find it, I just copied it. Where did I put it?
Is
Oh,
it you know what you know and you don't know what you don't know until you know? Is that
no.
the quote?
So this is what it is. This one's a little more wordy, but it's first a person sows a thought and reaps an action. Next, that action is sown and a habit is reaped. After sowing a habit, a certain type of character is reaped. Once a certain type of character is sown, you end up reaping your destiny. So it's this idea of it takes, like, are you in medication, Michelle?
Well, I'm on
Personal
for
question.
painkillers. That's medication, isn't it?
What's that?
I'm on 3 inhalers.
Okay.
That's
But so,
medication,
but
right?
you do that as needed, right?
No, I have a 12-hour
Okay.
regime, my
So,
doctor calls it.
so that habit wasn't there until you were told you need to do
Oh,
this or else, right?
that's right, or else I can't breathe.
And so in that, it's interesting what happens with fear, the way like
Yeah.
fear of like death or whatever, right? And
Mhm.
so it's interesting how we have something we've never had to do before. Like I take diabetic pills and I got type 1, so not like type 2, and I do insulin, but I have different things I do, right? And if I don't, like for me, if I don't deal with pain management, I got an issue with a back where they want surgery years ago, but I'm kind of not doing surgery if I don't have to. But I have to understand I need to take medication for that. And what medication does, it's a pain blocker. I say this to mom, by the way. If you have like medication or vitamins or whatever you have to do, if you don't do them in a habitual form, your pain will decrease
Right.
or it'll increase, sorry, right? So, so it reminds me of mom's mom, Grandma Jean. And my grandma would, she smoked unfiltered, she rolled her own cigarettes here, not, the other stuff,
Mm.
not the lettuce. And she,
Double
the devil's lettuce, right? I love that. It's so stupid. Anyway, it's funny.
stupid.
And so Grandma Jean for her whole life rolled her own cigarette, had a little rolling machine with it, right? And she's passed away now, but she ended up being hospitalized. I think she'd been smoking like 50 years. I think she was in her 60s.
Yeah.
And she had an angina attack, and they actually found scar tissue. She had numerous scar tissue on her heart, but she was like a tough old bird, right? So
Sure.
she's in the hospital for a couple of weeks. You can't smoke there. So she starts to do candies like Scotch mints or something. I don't know, candies you would suck on, right? So she had this habit of 50 years of smoking,
Yeah.
unfiltered. Anyways, leave that alone. And and all of a sudden, after a couple of weeks, not being able to hit the nicotine fix, but then also the
Yeah.
habitual component, she never smoked again.
Yeah.
Right. So it's interesting what our will does, right? Like you said, with your health, you've had to adjust
Yep.
not only for you, but it affects your family.
Absolutely. For sure.
Yeah.
It does. Yeah, definitely. And yeah, there's something about your life being on the line or that shift. Did I ever tell you about when I quit smoking?
Maybe, but tell me again. I'm
Okay.
old. I might need to be told a few
Yeah,
times.
you probably didn't retain it. You're too worried about other people in your family. Anyways, so I talked about, so okay, I started smoking at 17 out of boredom, and all the cool kids were hanging out in the smoking area. So I might as well smoke while I'm there. So I started smoking at 17. My dad had said to me, don't smoke. For one, they hated that I smoked, but he smoked. So there you go. But he used to say, don't get to the point where you've smoked longer than you've not smoked. That's when it gets really hard to quit, which is ridiculous, but I get what he was saying. So
Yeah.
funny enough, I started at 17. 17 years later, I ended up quitting, but I talked about it for about 2 years. And and I smoked a whole pack a day. But I started going with lighter and lighter cigarettes. But people, I don't know, would ever come up about quitting. And I'd be like, yeah, I'm going to quit. I'm just not ready yet. I'm not mentally ready. When I'm ready, I'm going to quit. So I was sort of psyching myself out. And the office I worked in, there's only 3 of us. I was the only smoker. So it really stood out to me that I'm the only one standing outside. I'm the only one that needs a smoke break. But then I had an aha moment and it motivated me to quit is that I realized that the cigarettes had control over me and I didn't like that. And by that, I mean, oh, I'm going to do some chores. I better go for my smoke first. oh, I'm gonna do it. Everything was geared around this stupid cigarette. And I had survived like some pretty shitty breakups and stuff in my life that some people know that have known me for a long time. And I was like, it just was such a contradiction to me. Like, here I am, strong survivor, blah, 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 play the background music. But I had this stupid
Pom-pom.
cigarette, yeah, that was controlling me. And that was the shift I needed in my brain. And I quit not long after. So I had to have that really
And
like,
and
wow.
I love that, Michelle, because again, into this like kind of world that I'm in, just sometimes you look back and go, okay, this is maybe purpose, right? In life.
Yeah,
People, I like Michelle, we're survivors. We've been through I mean, everybody probably in the chat, we all have our own story for sure, right?
that's
And some, you don't have to like go to prison and blah, blah, blah. You don't have to have like, because you can have, I talked before about, you can have trauma where, um, and if this is traumatizing, I apologize. You could have been in a home where there was physical abuse or sexual abuse or just verbal abuse, and sometimes not saying anybody here, but in our culture, it was easy back then to think, well, at least I didn't hit you or like stuff like that, right?
sure,
And
sure.
and so what might be a boulder for some may be a pebble. What might be a pebble be a boulder, right? But
That's right.
here's a few thoughts before we kind of getting ready to close it down. But hey, we're having a good time. Everybody's happy.
Yeah,
Everybody's still with us.
happy.
Um, so this fear. So it's interesting, like what you just said about, like, in a way, we, like most of us say we love ourselves, and even like most people aren't risk takers to the sense of putting their life at risk, but you think of smoking or just different things, but we don't think that way. But it's interesting to, for me, when I work through people working through trauma, about, so interesting, they don't lose any sleep, but I wonder why we're doing that. I wonder why I would, like, I was a heavy drug user. Now I was, when I was younger, by the way, when I was like, I was doing like the weirdest stuff. I'm not making an excuse, but I think drugs were probably cleaner back in the 70s than they are now for sure.
Yeah,
But I was masking my pain. I didn't know how to deal with my trauma. So this thing that I was willing to take risk of every time I would inject myself of not being alive, right? So it's interesting about this sense of unworthiness or fear.
right.
And I've said this dozens of times, I say dozens of times, when we can look back, if you're somebody like my son's 18, if he can look back when he's 10, you go, oh yeah, there's whatever. I used to like this and I don't eat it now, whatever, opposite. When we're older and we have this privilege of experience and time, and we can see when we were in that hard moment and we're stuck, say depression or whatever, we don't, we're not good at visualizing our future health. We're
Right.
not we're not we're not good at speaking, understanding the power of word. We've talked about this before, right? So in when we're in that moment, we're feeling overwhelmed, we're stuck, we're unworthy, all of these kind of mind traps. And it really, like, and that makes it sound so simple for like if you're wrestling through stuff, but it really takes a shift, and it's really like it's a microsecond, and it has to happen. Like when Michelle realized she didn't want to smoke, and still hard work to quit smoking,
Sure.
but all of a sudden something changes where we learn this. We don't say these words. All of a sudden it's going, I don't have to do that anymore.
Right.
I don't have to do that anymore.
Yeah.
I don't, Michelle said, I don't want to have power over me.
That's
I want,
exactly.
to the best of my ability, have control. Like we got to pay taxes. Fortunately, we're all going to die, the good and bad of that. I don't want to be 100 years old just owning it, by the way. I really don't want to be 100 years old. But part of it is go back to motivation with goal setting. What, and I put in here, what are some of your goals, right?
Yeah.
Hey, thanks, Missy. Appreciate, she's proud of me. Hey, good for Tom. Here's the power of our story, right? When we realize in the midst of our are in the midst of our trauma or troubles or struggles, we don't feel very good.
Right.
But we need to speak the future truth, our goal,
Right.
into existence. You wake up in the morning. This is Michelle. I'm totally stealing Michelle. You wake up in the morning, however you word it, and you go, you know what? I am worth a good day. And if bad things come my way, out of my control, I'm going to make a conscious effort to
Right.
not let it suck my soul, steal my joy, whatever language you use, right?
That's right.
And your attitude, back to Michelle, hashtag Michelle, is we're in control of our attitude, right? There you go. Whatever those that
Yeah.
she was flashing gang signs to me. I saw it. It was a gang sign.
God, you're not listening.
Yeah, there you go. So part of
You're
what it
so,
is
so right.
no, I was going to say, but then you can finish up. Part of what it is, it's really a shift. The reason, again, we're doing this and we say this, I mean, and we really believe, like, okay, we don't think we're not like super special. We're not like, I don't know, Joe Rogan or whatever. But we've realized this: we have power of our story, and we have the influence that we have influence. That's why we encourage you to invite your friends, keep joining us, listen, give us feedback, and all that. Because as you build a community of people that believe that in betterment,
Yep.
we get to change the world in little bits, right? So we're not doing it because we're going to go on tour one day. Well, maybe Michelle will, but not me.
Okay.
Maybe. But we're doing this because we have somehow been influenced, encouraged, and we want to pay it forward. That's just the easy line of it, right?
Absolutely. Absolutely. If I can, I'm going to sort of circle back because that's what I do. Another thing is think about where your focus is lying. So, just a little short thing like if you have 10 interactions in a day and one of them is negative, but nine are positive, sometimes that negative one, that one, it's just going to play on your mind, play on your mind, play on your mind. Where if you look at the whole 10, only 10% was crappy, 90% was good, right? So, again, flexing that mind muscle of taking the attention off of whatever didn't serve you right, maybe triggered you, maybe brought up some old emotions, whatever that was, you know, just yeah, see it for what it is and let it go, right? And then focus on the other things. So that was shitty. I learned some stuff. I'm not going to stay on the phone that long next time. I'm not going to respond. Just so you know, one person won't argue alone, so I won't respond the same way. You know, when things go not so well, it's all about taking the lesson forward. But sometimes we can have laser focus just on that one crappy thing and then let it snowball and ruin the whole rest of our day. Where if it's done, it's over, we can't control it, we can't fix it, drop it like a hot potato and just be like Frozen and let it go and
Let
move
it
forward.
go.
Yeah, yeah, something like that. But yeah,
And
exactly.
you know what I think with that, Michelle, and then I'll shut up. And then I have something for next week, by the way,
Oh,
throw by
good.
you. But
All right.
I think I'll use the example because I deal with people with fears and phobias, or it's one of the certificates I have, right? One of the courses I've taken.
Sure.
And it's the idea of like as a young child, you were walking down the street and the neighbor's dog came at you aggressively and was barking, scared you, right? And all of a sudden you grow up with this fear of dogs. Like you get apprehension, it's how you feel internally, externally, right?
Yeah.
And so but the reality is not all dogs are bad. It's the same thing if you go to a restaurant and you've had 9 good meals, your 10th meal sucked or the waitress sucked, and then you don't
Yeah.
think the nine, you think of that one. Well, I'm not going back there again, right?
Right.
Or if you've had, being vulnerable here, you've had issues with a spouse, like you've talked about having very difficult relationships previously, right? It's
Right.
very easy to go, well, men are evil or women are evil or liberals are evil. All liberals are evil. Well, most. No, I'm joking. Most of them. I'm teasing. But
I'm in. I agree.
um, me and Michelle, as an example, we talked before privately lots, but about religion and how this idea. Like I know some really good, say, faith people that are really nice and kind. I know other ones that don't even realize how manipulative and controlling and judgmental they are.
Right.
So how do we not let one little thing screw up the rest? That again is our mindset. There's nothing wrong with saying if a dog freaked you out as a child, you don't have to get super close to a dog, but you don't want to be walking in that fear. I've talked to people all the time with that, right?
Right.
But so my thought is, I can say this live, but me and you'll wrestle through it. I thought in talking all about this, and this goes with goal setting, all that, overcoming trust issues.
Oh, I love it. Yeah. Very good. Overcoming trust issues. I'm writing
So
it down.
why don't you finish us with your last circles, because you circled 3 or 4 times now. It's been really good. And then you probably have a quote.
I have something better than a quote. It's
Al. No.
that would be funny and probably a little X-rated. Okay, so do you know I'm gonna call it a poem. It's by Wayne Dyer about the hole in the sidewalk. Do you know that one? Okay, it's not very long. I'm gonna read it to you. Okay. I walk down the street. There's a deep hole in the sidewalk. I fall in. I am lost. I am helpless. It isn't my fault. It takes forever to find a way out. I walk down the same street. There's a deep hole in the sidewalk. I pretend I don't see it. I fall in again. I can't believe I'm in the same place, but it isn't my fault. It takes me a long time to get out. I walk down the same street. There's a deep hole in the sidewalk. I see it there. I still fall in. It's a habit. My eyes are open. I know where I am. It is my fault. I get out immediately. I walk down the same street. There's a deep hole in the sidewalk. I walk around it. The end.
Love it.
Right? That's us. That's what we do. We see it, we think we got it, and we got to walk around it or go down a new street. That's another option. Going down a new street.
Here's another freebie. When you said the hole, it reminded me of this picture. I'll put it in our group later this week. I remember it. And it's a picture of a guy in a hole, and somebody comes by and say, "Hey, I'll help you out the hole." Or if you want to get out of the hole, why don't you do this? And like everybody's got good advice and whatever,
Sure.
right? And the end of this little comic thing, whatever, it was somebody that had been, the only person who had helped this person out of the hole was somebody that had been in the hole previously.
Right. Right.
So everybody in our group here, and people, like, the challenges we go through and the trauma we work through and all that, in a very true way, ends up being for the greater good. There's a great saying that says a wise person learns from their mistakes, and a wiser person learns from other mistakes.
Mm.
And I wish we would learn from others' mistakes before we have to make mistakes, but probably part of our human condition in a way. But we believe in you. We're here for all of us. We become better. Me and Michele. We appreciate you listening and sharing with us and sharing your time with us. It's important. It's valuable. And again, let us know anything we can do to support you and to help you.
I agree. Absolutely. We're in this together. And it goes back to that sense of community. Can you read my note? Is it the right way or backwards?
You are Rosemary.
Good.
You are Rosemary.
Amazing. Amazing. I
Oh,
need to
amazing. Okay, I know.
upload my background so I can post it, everybody. That's right. That's right. I want to add one other thing before we go. And it was something I think was really, Missy said a lot of important things. But one thing she said is that when we were growing up, nobody talked about mental illness. You had to buck up and get over it. And I think, whatever it was. And I think that's something that for those of us our age, or I mean, really, how long have they been talking about mental illness? The last 20 years? Really, like maybe seriously, maybe, I don't know. So that being said, that's another splash of kindness we have to add to ourselves because that foundation that a lot of us have from our youth, and I'm not putting it on anybody specifically, is pretty cracked, right? Like when you figure between sitting at the table to eat your food, getting a wooden spoon, getting kicked out until the street lights come on, like we were unsupervised. There was always the kid down the street, or maybe it was you that was taken behind the woodshed. Like we all knew, everybody knew that poor, I'm going to say Timmy for no particular reason. He was back behind the woodshed with his dad or whatever the scenario was. Everybody just sort of, that's what his parents do. Like it was such a different time. And for men specifically, if you cry, you're a wimp, you're a big baby, all those things. So I'm so glad that she mentioned that, because for me, anyways, it's just been in the last 15, 20 years that it's been publicly a topic, to my knowledge and recollection. Now, with Weight Watchers, it's a constant topic because mindset is the glue that holds all your good decisions together, in my humble opinion. Weight Watchers, 4 pillars, food, activity, blah, 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 all that stuff. But yeah, so I think that's a big thing for all of us to deal with, is that like that wasn't the way for over half my life. So switching it up again, retraining your brain to be kind, accepting, and sometimes just to cry and have a fit and get it out of your system and punch a pillow. Don't punch a wall, it's a pain in the butt to fix. But punch a pillow, punch a mattress. If everybody's got a beanbag chair, that's handy. Get it out of your system, dust off, you're good. Feel good, just let it go.
I love you saying that. I think I told this story that I have a guy that I counsel every few weeks, 75-year-old man, retired,
Yeah.
and dealing with some brokenness and family stuff. And his work was his life, and he has lost his family over it, right? And it's sad. So he's older a bit. He's got his habits, working through changing mindset. And I told him about this thing about scream therapy. Did I say this before?
You did.
And so instead of punching a wall, he's a little too frail to punch. There's some people I know that will go take a physical, like have a punching bag at home or do something physically to let that negativity out. So he told me he went and screamed in the woods. He didn't think anybody was there, so he felt safe.
I
And
love
he
it.
and I think I said this. He's just him telling me, he's a little English guy, little English voice. Right? He goes, I've never met him. I've only been counseling on the phone. And he goes, I screamed and I screamed and then I cried. And then I
Good.
cried. And then I screamed some more. And
Yeah,
it's this guttural, it surpasses our mind, but it's this release of trauma, release of pain.
that's right.
And we haven't talked about, again, I've only talked about once since then, but uh, find a way to release. I was going to say, release the shit,
Yeah,
release
do it.
negativity, figure out how to do it,
Yeah.
and that's it.
Yeah. And feel free to share, because maybe your share is going to encourage someone else, right? Like that's the thing. And that's why, the sense of community, like thank you everybody for sharing today. So very important, because you never know like who's listening or who would like to be able to, have that validation or realize they're not alone or whatever. So sharing is important. We appreciate that too. That's right. So that is all for this week, correct? That's right. High five. High five, everybody. That's right. Very good. Very good. So, everybody, have an amazing week. Don't forget how absolutely awesome you are. All your dreams can come true. Just focus and be patient and kind with yourself. That's the key, right? Pace yourself. Progress. I have a shirt. It says progress over perfection. And that's the thing. You don't want to be perfect at everything. You just want progress in the right direction. So have an absolutely amazing week. Don't forget how awesome you are. Thanks to Tom for coming today and for everybody for joining in. And we'll see you next week. Same bat time, same bat channel. Excellent.
Bye, everybody.
Oh, my mouse isn't working. Hold on.